one topic I want to get into is self-driving cars, and I've noticed that you write quite a few articles on different aspects of self-driving cars technology and what basically is needed to get it to scale eventually and to get them on the streets and stuff like that. Could you just, in your mind, what is the most realistic scenario and timeline, if you have one, for general adoption of self-driving cars?
Uh, okay, so that's a good question. I haven't. I write about cars. I write about car technology a lot these days.
Which is super useful, by the way. Unpacking some of those, yeah, it's helping me a lot. I had a
Well, it's interesting. I don't know about anywhere else, but here in Canada, it's funny because there's been a number of. It's a pretty small group of those of us who are technology journalists, so we see each other all the time. And a lot of us have actually shifted to writing more and more about cars because, and not so much about iPhones or whatever. And I think that's just a product of cars is where the exciting technology is now happening. So anyhow, yeah. So pretty much I'm just a pretty much a very neutral reporter on this particular stuff. I don't think I've done a lot of opinionating, to be honest with you, about autonomous cars. I haven't made any predictions, and I don't know. I honestly don't know if I know enough to make predictions.
Mhm.
The With autonomous cars, I can say this much is what I've experienced so far is pretty astonishing and jaw dropping, and I think a lot of people out there still doubt it and that it's going to happen, but there's no doubt it's happening. It's the technology is in fact here, and it's good. It's actually pretty good. It's just a question of car makers being allowed to put it on the roads. So I think it's the rules, the insurance, the regulations, all that stuff. That stuff is in a process of being sorted out. So right now, I think in most countries, in Canada, probably I think in the UK as well. I'm not positive. Definitely in the US, the car self-driving. We've got 5 levels to it, right? Level 5 being fully autonomous cars that don't need
Yeah.
steering wheels. Right now, I think what we have that's road legal is level 2, which is basically being able to drive yourself on one lane on a highway without changing lanes and so on. And so that technology is here. It's fully legal, and it's depending on the car maker, it's great. I was driving the Nissan Leaf a few weeks ago, or
Mhm.
about 2 months ago, I think, and even driving it on country roads where the lane markings weren't the greatest. You're still not supposed to take your hands off the steering wheel. I don't think
Yeah.
that's actually legal yet. You can for a few seconds, and then the car starts to scream at you. But even having said that, it's the self-driving part of it. It's really two parts to it. The car is using cameras to see the lines on the side of the road and to basically keep itself centered in the lane, and then it's using radar and cameras to detect the car in front of you,
Mhm.
and so that it can keep its a constant speed and a constant distance. So those two functions together work, at least in the Nissan Leaf. They work fantastically. I was blown away by how well this car was doing, and this was several hours on country roads. So level 3 is coming next. That's where they're going to be able to switch lanes, and
Mhm.
I can't remember the exact timeline, but it might be even as soon. Some car makers might even be targeting next year, 2019, with that. I'm not
Mhm.
positive. Um, so the thing with autonomy is, I think this goes back to my first book, Sex Bombs and Burgers. I spoke with this general, former retired general, or he may have been an admiral, I can't remember, Navy admiral, and he was working for iRobot at the time. That's the company that makes the Roomba vacuum cleaners. And I just remember him saying, automation comes in. His term was on cat's feet, which is very lightly. It comes in one step at a time. And he was telling me about how in the Navy, their planes, they became, almost every year they had just one more function added, one more function added. That slowly but surely made them more autonomous to the point where modern jets today can largely fly themselves and land themselves and take off and so
Mhm.
on. So that's, and I think the quote was something like, it arrives on cat's feet. It's not the Terminator. It doesn't just show up out of the future. So
Yeah.
that's basically where we're heading with autonomous cars. Is every single year we've got new safety functions coming in, whether it's lane assist or blind spot detection or this adaptive cruise control and so on and so on. So slowly but surely we're getting there. And again, like I said, the next step, level 3, is I think it's about a year or two away.
Hmm. How important do you think culture is in adopting these technologies? Because to me, looking at what's happening with self-driving cars and kind of the hurdles and the very unfortunate and tragic casualties and stuff like that, it's
Hmm.
just it's an example. It's a very early example of a technology that is inherently uh, disruptive and brings kind of all kinds of short-term how would I say it? Short-term, not necessarily. I don't want to talk about loss of jobs too much. Kind of short-term uncertainty, right, about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So to me, apart from self-driving cars, there's going to be quite a few other technologies coming in and kind of medium term, challenging the society in a similar way, where the technology is already here. It is already safer, arguably, yet the culture kind of prevents it from being adopted at scale.
Hmm.
Just what do you think about the role of culture, and how should a society be thinking about these technologies that are challenging so many things that we're so used to be doing?
Yeah, and when it comes to driving, that's something that a lot of people love to do, and there's many people that will say, "I will never get in a self-driving car. I love driving," and so on and so on. And there's a lot of ways to deal with that. There's a lot of possibilities. Who knows what's going to happen? The one option is, well, your cars can drive themselves. You'll have the option. You can have your car drive itself, or you can take over whenever you want. I don't think anybody likes driving in bumper to bumper traffic. Why wouldn't you set your car to drive itself at that
Yeah.
point, right? Um, there's also the thinking that, well, autonomous cars are going to be incredibly safer than human drivers. I think there's a lot of science out there that suggests that, and I think that's probably correct. So there is the thinking that those safety gains are only going to be realized when all cars are self-driving, and following that stream of logic, maybe at some point it actually becomes illegal for humans to drive. So a lot of this is really unwritten. One anecdote I'll mention on that front, which I think is kind of funny. I always tell everybody that what I want to do is I want to save up a bunch of money and buy this big plot of land in the country, and then buy a whole bunch of old cars, and just have this kind of car ranch where people will be able to come out and drive cars when it becomes illegal for them to do so anywhere else. Uh, that's my get rich quick scheme.
Hell of a business plan,
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah, whether it comes to pass, who knows? But anyways, so yeah, there is definitely going to be a change of culture. But I think this is the exciting thing, and this is why so many journalists are moving towards covering cars, because there is the potential here for huge societal change. And if again, I'm an optimist, so I think we're going to have societal change for the better. There are inevitably going to be downsides. There's going to be side effects, and that's I think probably the main thing I talk about in Humans 3.0 is we hear so much about negative side effects of technologies, but we rarely hear about the positive effects. And
Yeah.
inevitably, a technology is never adopted unless the positive effects outweigh the negative side effects.
Hmm.
It's just not human nature to adopt any sort of a technology that doesn't somehow make your life better. And there's examples out there where there's been crappy technologies, and they don't do well. People don't buy them. They don't sell. Companies go bankrupt, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think self-driving cars are going to have a lot of benefits for society. They're going to improve a lot of problems that we have. Uh, yeah.
Got it. I